Hi, my name's Lynn Colson, and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and my website is Avery's Owlery, averysowlery.com. And I want to share with you some tips on how to make this card today. So the part that's really different about this is this background here, and I'll show you how I made that. It's really easy, and maybe you can try it on some of your cards. You can do it with any color combination. It doesn't have to be the greens that I used here today. All right, so let's get started. So first of all, I have a card base that is 8.5 by 5.5, and it's scored at 4 1/4, and folded in half. So that's the card base. I have a piece of Perennial Essence Designer Series paper. This is, measurements will be on the screen because I can't remember right now. And that layers on here. And then I have this piece, which is 4 3/4 by 3.5. That one I know. Oh, I know. The Perennial Essence is 4 by 5 1/4. And that will go here. And then I have two other pieces. This is 3/4 by about 4. We're going to cut it down. And so this is for the sentiment. This is very vanilla. And then this is soft sea foam, and it's 1 inch by about 4 inches. Again, we're going to cut that down, so it doesn't really matter how long it is, as long as it's long enough to pick up all of your sentiment. Okay, so let me show you how I made this background. So what you're going to need is a stamping block. You can use any size stamping block that you want, but for this particular card, I used the E size. So if you can see that, the E size. And then I used sponge daubers and ink. I did try to do this yesterday without using the sponge daubers, and because you're watching this video, you get to see my total disaster from yesterday. This one, it's really crappy, so that's why it's not on my blog today. But on this one, I just inked up the block with the stamp pad, and I felt it was just too much. So I figured out a different way to do it today. So what you're going to do is you're going to take sponge daubers. Now I use these sponge daubers. There's a link on my blog to the Amazon location where I bought this case and 20 daubers, and I think it's like $20 with Prime shipping. I tell you what, this is awesome because I can keep all my daubers separate. I use a label maker to label the outside of the dauber so that I don't have to wash them and reuse them on different colors. And then I created this by hand, this grid paper with all the labels in there, so I know which ones are which. But like I said, there's a link on my blog so you can see how where to get one of those. So what I did first is I took soft sea foam, and because this color was so light, I did stamp that all over the block to really pick up the ink. I tried using daubers on this, but it was just too light, and so you can kind of see that there's some green on there, some soft sea foam. Then I took Old Olive and a dauber, inked that up, and just kind of daubed around some areas on the block just to give it a little bit of depth. And then I did the same thing with Pear Pizzazz. So I got 3 colors of green going on here. Every time you do this, it's going to come out a little bit different. So, okay. Now you can really kind of see how that's got some green going on there. It's a good idea to kind of look at it through the, okay, through your paper to see if it's going to look the way you want it. Then what I did is I took a spritzer filled with water. These are nice to have on hand. using for watercolor or for this technique, I held it kind of far away and just spritzed a little bit of water just to make that ink move a little bit. And then I lined it up. Now this paper is just pretty much exactly a little bit bigger all the way around than the block. So what it does is it kind of creates a frame without layers. It's like adding layers without layers. So we're doing layers with ink instead, and you get the nice straight lines from the block. And there's my background. So you can see how that, very different from the one I did here, but still beautiful. It just depends on how much ink you put on it, how much water you spritz on it. Okay, then I took my Wintwr stamp set, and I used this stamp. Make sure that you line it up on the block straight. To get your trees. Okay, the rest of this is pretty much just assembly. I'm going to use a snail to adhere. If you hear noise in the background, it's my husband because he's working from home. I put this on with dimensionals. And he doesn't know how to be quiet. So I'm just adding dimensionals to put this on here, and then I'll show you how I did the sentiment. There we go. The sentiment is from Forever Blossoms, and I just wanted the cherish every moment of this day, but I didn't want the of this day part. I just wanted the cherish every moment. So I put it on my Stamparatus, lined it up onto the 3/4 piece by whatever. I think this is about 4. It doesn't really matter so long as it's longer. And I inked it up with soft suede and early espresso. You don't have to do that, and I use the markers because I was only doing part of it. You can do it actually with a dauber, and only ink up the portion of the sentiment that you want. I decided I wanted to try and get the every to be darker than the rest of it, so that I did in early espresso marker, and then the rest of it I did in soft suede marker. And this technique works really well coloring directly onto the red rubber stamps. It works really great with red rubber. It doesn't work so great with photopolymer. You can do it, and doing it with a Stamparatus actually makes it a little bit better because you can do it multiple times. But the ink tends to pool on the photopolymer, and it doesn't on the red rubber. Just gonna kind of blow on that a little bit to get some moisture, and then press. And there's my sentiment, and that every will actually darken up as it dries. And then what I'm gonna do is get my tailored tag here and use that to crop a banner end. So I'm going to put it in this way, find where the end of my words are, and then try to my best to center it. So I'm cutting right here. That's just like that. It's a great reason to have this punch, if not just for making the other punch sizes. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this 1-inch piece of soft sea foam. That one I'm just going to cut the end. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to layer this on top the way I want it, about like that. And then I'm just going to snip off the ends of it. With some scissors. You can do this for time's sake. I'm just doing it with my scissors. You can also do it certainly with your trimmer. Okay, so we've got that. I'm going to add that onto our card front, about right there. And I'm going to do that with dimensionals also. And then we're going to make a little bow. I've shared earlier in a blog post, and I'll have the link on my website to that video on how to make these double-ended or multi-looped bows, sorry. Put that right there so you can see how to make it again. But I'm going to use linen thread this time. And I learned this from Mary Dolmage at a stamping convention that I went to last year. So I'm just going to do this with 2 fingers. Make sure my fingers are in the frame. And I'm going to wrap it around 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6 times. And then I'm going to snip it off, take it off my fingers. Again, make sure I'm in the frame. And twist it so that it makes a figure 8. And I'm going to grab my reversible tweezers. Sometimes it's hard to do this with the camera in the way. Twist. Grab it with my reversible tweezers. And then I'm just going to take, and it'll look better, I promise. Take this, tie it around into a knot. Just tie it around like this into a knot. Well, gosh, it's because I'm on video that I can't get this to work right. There we go. If I were doing this with just me, myself, and I, it would be perfectly fine. Okay. There. And trim off the ends. Pick up a glue dot. Put that right there on our card. You can certainly play with that just a little bit to make it how you want it. There you go. So there's my original. There's this one. A lot more color in there. Again, it just depends on how much green you use, how much water you use. But either way, it's a great, easy technique to use to add some layers onto your card without having to do a bunch of layering with paper. It doesn't add a lot of weight. I hope you've enjoyed my video today. Please comment down below on my blog post, and I hope to see you again sometime. Thank you. Bye-bye.